Thank you so much for having me here. I actually feel very privileged not only to be speaking with you all about an issue that is of such great importance, but I feel like I've got the better side. I feel like it would be very hard to show that drone warfare is effective, and that at this point in the debate, no one on the other side has shown at all, put forth any evidence whatsoever that drone warfare is effective. We have talked so far in terms of hypotheticals. What is this technology? We haven't talked about what drone warfare has done. We haven't talked about the drone warfare that has occurred. The proposition would have you look at the technology, view it as the advance that it is, and stop there. This proposition is that drone warfare is ethical and effective. There is no proof that it is effective. And in the places where we have conducted drone strikes, there is a real question as to how it could be proven effective. When we ask what's effective, we have to ask for whom is it effective? Is it effective for the United States to be conducting drone strikes? Is it effective for the people of Pakistan for there to be drone strikes? I would submit to you that there is no evidence that drone warfare is effective for the people who live in the countries where drone strikes take place. In fact, there is evidence that would severely undercut the idea that it is effective for those people in terms of the threat of terrorism that they face. So we should start out today by acknowledging that terrorism is not just a threat, that it's real, that it's not an abstract issue, that it is a human rights violation, that it affected the United States, and it was a violation last week for those of us who were in the United States, in Boston, in New York. And it's something that frequently we talk about in the United States as a threat, but it's a frequent reality for the people in countries where drone strikes are taking place. And when I say terrorism, I mean conflict-related violence. In Pakistan, according to one estimate, more than 35,000 people have died due to terrorism. In Pakistan, every other week there is a major terrorist attack. We're not just talking about the outlying regions where drone strikes occur, where there's conflict going on. We're talking about terrorist attacks inside major cities. The city of Karachi, a city of 18 million people, as significant or more significant to the country of Pakistan as Boston is to the United States. Terrorism happens there. It happens all the time. It happened in March in Karachi. They blew up a mosque. They did a second bombing that blew up all the rescuers who went in to help the people who were at that mosque. There were children lying in pools of blood. For one person who was there, they described it as a doomsday. So if terrorism is real, how do we respond to it? Do we respond to it with drone strikes? Is drone warfare effective for reducing terrorism for the people of Pakistan or the people of Yemen or wherever else we decide to conduct drone strikes? Well, the evidence isn't good that it is. And every year that we've conducted drone strikes in Pakistan, terrorism has not decreased. Some people say that it's increased. I think that that's difficult to prove. But imagine if you lived in a country where there were 600 terrorist attacks every year for the past 3 years, and you heard on television President Barack Obama saying that drone strikes had decimated the core of Al-Qaeda, that drone strikes were keeping the United States safe. Wouldn't you naturally ask yourself, if your country is the victim of 600 terrorist attacks a year, whether it was keeping you safe? In fact, what we know terrorist attacks have occurred, we know that they've occurred in Pakistan, and we know that they're not just occurring in the outlying regions, they're shifting to the cities because these organizations, these militant groups that were operating in parts of Pakistan that were the outlying regions because of drone strikes can no longer operate there. They're going into Balochistan, they're moving into different parts of Pakistan, they're moving into the cities where, because drone warfare doesn't work in those cities, because that precision technology can't avoid civilian casualties in those cities, there aren't drone strikes. So when terrorist attacks happen in Pakistan, the people of Pakistan, for instance, look to their own government for support. And that's where we really have to move beyond the gruesome metrics of how many terrorist leaders have been killed through drone warfare and how many civilian casualties there have been because of drone warfare. And we have to think about what kind of countries we want. What kind of Pakistan do we want 15 to 20 years from now? What kind of Yemen do we want 15 to 20 years from now? And I submit to you that drone warfare makes it worse for these countries in the long term. That political viability of drone warfare, that sustaining the democracies in Pakistan and in other countries where we're conducting drone warfare is made less possible because of drone warfare. So we look at the country of Pakistan and we see a place that if we conduct enough drone strikes, we'll take out enough leaders, we'll no longer face a threat to the United States. That is the wrong way to gauge effectiveness. We have to gauge effectiveness by what happens in that country. Drone warfare is clearly ineffective in terms of stability of the countries where we're conducting drone strikes. We conduct drone warfare in Pakistan because we need a secret. Drone warfare is about secrecy. Despite what Ben said earlier, drone warfare isn't just about using drone technology in some wars, as it is in Afghanistan. We use drone strikes sometimes. Drone warfare is about doing a kind of war because we need secrecy about it. We need it to be politically expedient. When we do drone strikes in Pakistan, we are relying on the consent of a military dictator who took over the country, tried to oust the sitting judges, and then continued on. At this point in Pakistan, most people are against drone strikes. Parliament has passed resolutions condemning drone strikes. If you're a citizen of Pakistan and you see drone strikes continuing to occur, what faith can you have in your own government? What faith can you have in the democracy that Pakistan continues to try to be, in a country where for more than half of its lifetime, there's been a military dictatorship? How can the United States, how can governments conduct drone warfare in these countries to sustain and to build up military power instead of supporting the democratic impulse of those countries? Drone warfare continues in countries where those governments, those host governments, do not have the will to either say no to drone strikes or to own up to their own people and say we are permitting those drone strikes to occur. In that sense, it is fundamentally undermining of democracy in those countries. And in that sense, it is ineffective for the people who live there. But what about for the United States? Is drone warfare effective for the United States, or is it effective for any of the countries that might be conducting strikes in this fashion, in this secretive fashion? I don't think it's effective for the United States. Empirically, drone warfare is not effective because it perpetuates a state of war. We are now in the United States in a boundless war. We are in a world war. We have conducted drone strikes in the Philippines. We continue to conduct them in Pakistan. We might be conducting them in parts of North Africa. There is no limit in sight. There is no end. There is no end in our lifetimes to the war on terrorism, although it's no longer called that. And that is made possible because of drones. That is intrinsic to drone warfare, as we have seen it be waged by the United States. Drone warfare in the United States is not waged by the conventional military. Conventional military conducts drone strikes in Afghanistan. But drone warfare, where what we rely on is drone technology, that's conducted by the CIA and the Joint Special Operations Command, highly secretive organizations with records of poor accountability to democratic institutions inside the United States. So the question really becomes, what's so great about this technology? Well, there's a lot of great things about this technology. It is a huge advance in terms of precision. It does allow pilots to move away sometimes, hypothetically. But if all we think about is the hypothetical, then we're not dealing with reality. Whether or not this is effective depends on what we've seen happen in the past. And we have not seen drone warfare be effective in terms of the livelihoods of the people who live in the countries where drone strikes are occurring, or in terms of the United States and setting the conditions for long-term peace and stability in those countries. Thank you.